Hello and welcome to the studio. I'm Lee Sellers and we're discussing where is technology truly unlocking business productivity. This roundtable is sponsored by Elsewhen and I'm joined by Leon Gauman, Brian Breckenborough, Nick Reeks, Juan Villamil and Connor Whelan. So Nick, I'd like to start with you. What is your view on this statement? Transforming an organization to become a technology organization allows employees to optimize performance and better deliver the business's core value.
That's a large question. So in steel, we've been making steel for over 100 years. So technology has long been the central part of what we do, how we make it, where we make it, the processes, the energy consumption, and of course today, in today's world, where are we and how are we with carbon? How do we improve the carbon footprint for steel manufacturing, and what role does the fundamental technology play? So I suppose, we often think from an IT sense about technology, servers, applications, etc. is quite narrow, but in reality, for us in a manufacturing context, the technology question is very wide. We're funding obviously a lot of R&D into this space to understand what technology is going to do to the product itself. What we're finding, I think, at the moment, though, is that there is absolutely another revolution in the technology side. And again, for us in the manufacturing space, the whole IoT and sensor piece is really opening up a whole new world for us. I guess it's very, alongside carbon, the big topic is energy. And just in the last couple of weeks, we've been deploying technology using lasers to measure the heat and the heat control within our furnace areas where we're taking slabs just before rolling, and using that technology to really look at the energy capability, the energy cost that we are facing right now. And what we found is that has opened up a huge piece of interest for very skilled individuals who are very keen to use technology to aid their job. It's not just a kind of, we need to reduce the cost of energy. It's like, how are we going to use lasers? Where is it going to fit? How do we capture the data? How long do we keep the data? How efficient and effective is this process going to be? And then what does it mean for the whole team operation that we've got? So you see it at a very small level, how do we manage something in a small environment, right through to how do we deal with the decarbonisation challenge that we've got in a steel sector as a whole.
Well, that's very interesting and full answer on the steel industry. Thank you.
It's a lot for us to deal with at the moment, I can assure you.
I want to come to Connor next from Experian. Another revolution?
I don't think it's a revolution. I think it's a continuation, to be honest. Automation has been around for many years, but how do you adopt it at scale? We are a technology company. So one of the things that we're looking at is bringing more artificial intelligence and machine learning into the automation to ensure that we can keep up with the pace of change. Technology is changing at an incredible pace. It feels as if it's getting faster every year. And I just take the operations of all of the systems that we run for our customers, and we have to deploy automation and machine learning to be able to keep up with the demands of the changes. Just applying the changes, we apply about 30,000 changes a week to our environment. So to do that in a manual way would be very expensive. So we've seen the advances of AI and automation, machine learning over recent years, and that will continue because the humans can't keep up.
Well, thank you for that. And Juan Villamil from Imperial College London, what's your view on this statement? That transforming an organization to become a technology organization allows employees to optimize performance.
So at Imperial College, I think as a world-class STEM, I had to get that in. The Guardian University of the Year. Technology is very much core at what we do, in everything from teaching, research, through to how we run Imperial College. And changes at a very fast pace, and adoption is probably the challenge that we have, keeping up with that technology and making use of that technology. And the last 2-3 years through COVID, we have been forced through that adoption cycle in how we use technology. For instance, in teaching, we've implemented HoloLens with Microsoft so that we could deliver clinical teaching through our School of Medicine. So You couldn't do word rounds, for instance, during the pandemic. So with HoloLens, we could do a virtual word round, or other things like when we're teaching rectal examinations, the use of VR and 3D in those teaching scenarios is very useful. And in research, clearly technology is core to what we do across every discipline of research. We do a lot of research in AI and machine learning, and clearly technology plays a big role. And also as to how we run the university. And that's probably where we have the biggest challenge, because there it's about how we adopt that technology, and it's about transforming that mindset. It's about taking the organization along with us to really drive and implement the opportunity that technology lends us.
I love the idea of VR in medicine, though. So interesting. Well, thank you for that. And Leon Gauman, you're from Elsewhen. Is this true, this statement?
I think it's very true. We see with clients a huge uptake of using technology to try to improve the way they do business, the way that they work internally. And we think things are going to go much further. So one of the things we've seen post-pandemic of how fast and things have changed and how seriously organizations are taking digitalization and kind of introduction of technology to change how the business works, how value is created, and how that value is arriving to customers. And like mentioned, there is uptake. So we have employees who are technically very educated. They're excited about technology. There's an opportunity to give employees tools that they want, tools that are being designed for them, and tools that can really increase the organization's productivity, because throwing people at a problem is not really a solution anymore. As we heard, it's just not an option. So you have to innovate, you have to change, and there's a huge opportunity with technology to do that for any organization.
Well, we're getting lots and lots of positive messages here. So Brian Brackenborough from Channel 4, tell us do you think this statement is true? Are you getting more productivity? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. The broadcasting industry as a whole has changed significantly over the years, and it's about understanding how the viewers, how their viewing habits are, and how they want to, watch our content. So it's no longer pumping it up over TV aerials and onto a TV. It can be on your phone, it can be on your watch, it can be on your tablet, and we very much have to respond to that if we want to retain our viewers. So from an output perspective, it has significantly changed, and we have to find a way in which we can deliver that and also obtain that data that we have from our viewers and their viewing habits, so that we can then supply them with adverts that make sense to them, so that we continue to earn the revenue, so that we can then put that back into the content that we're producing to ensure that we continue to do what we do.
Well, this is, I mean, you're all saying really positive things here. Are there, and you said throwing people at it is not an option anymore. It's got to be technology, really. Is there anything blocking productivity? Anybody?
Yeah, this is just reflecting on some of the other comments that, as you go along, and then yeah, of course we're all in technology, so we're going to broadly agree with the premise of your question. But I think just if some part of the question is are all companies becoming technology companies, or are all companies becoming software companies? Okay, obviously for us in manufacturing that's not quite the case, but it's not that we're becoming a technology company per se, it's that technology is more available and we can do more with it. To your point about it being it's the output. I think one of the challenges we have got though is how are we going to use the technology? How do we make people more aware of it? And then when we do get technology, I'm not sure it's always that straightforward to use. I'm not sure it's always that easy for people to apply. There are millions of people who, use TikTok and make short videos and are extremely successful, but are they technologists? I wonder, maybe not. And I think, we just need to step back at times and say, yes, technology is good for us, but it's actually quite hard to get a lot of technology picked up by a lot of people to improve their productivity. So I would caveat some of what I said before. It's very focused in many areas. It's not for everybody. That's certainly what we see, anyway.
Is that a problem with employee uptake or client uptake that you?
I think it's the human mind. I work with some fantastic technologists, but they've all got very different views about the technology and what the technology can do for us as an organisation. So actually bringing them back to the fewest number of variables and options is really important, because you always hear of organisations that got legacy technology. Why have you got legacy technology? It's because your technology you're building is not sustainable, and you either stop investing, or the technology changes so fast that you don't keep up with the pace of change. So to keep up and build sustainable technology, you need to have really good line of sight as to the technology roadmaps and have the fewest number of options and variables. So when you get different technologies who've got different views and opinions of the technology, that becomes a behavioural, cultural challenge in the organisation that you need to overcome. So it's the human mind. We have to educate people as to the operating model to build sustainable technology.
So the human mind can be a blocking factor.
I think so.
So sometimes when I think about technology, sometimes I think we don't ask the basic questions. Why do we want to implement any technology? What are we trying to achieve and accomplish? Is it realistic, what we're trying to do? So setting those foundations is really important. So the biggest mistake we can make as technologists is implement technology for the sake of technology.
Yes.
Because it's the next shiny thing. That's just not going to achieve really anything or deliver any value, any outcome. And then when you talk through, okay, how do we then leverage the opportunity that technology is going to give us? I think the biggest challenge I can see through any organizations, if you're able to implement it and successfully implement it, is then through that adoption of that technology. So it's changing somehow what I've always done in a particular way, changing it to doing it in some other way. So that change process is incredibly difficult and challenging, and I would probably suggest for a lot of the reasons that are being highlighted here, it's that change that effectively means that you're going to be more or less successful through the adoption of that technology. That's always the challenge.
Is that persuading people to use things?
Yes, and it's how you win those hearts and minds. How do you transform that mindset and bring the organization with you, show them the value of what you are doing, making it accessible. People, we're creatures of habit, and we're all going to feel threatened somehow by change. And to a degree that could be true as well. So it's managing all that from the beginning. If you miss that engagement, that comms, that then you're not going to be very successful through that process of adopting technology.
Yeah, so another challenge. Any other challenges?
I think they're pretty well covered.
Good.
I mean, particularly within broadcasting, it used to be a case of build, not buy, because you couldn't find the right product out there, and that's where you get your tech debt or your legacy stuff. And now that's changed. People are beginning to realise that. And then, as you were saying, it's about companies that work in silos. You can find yourself with 3 products that do exactly the same thing but slightly different. So where's the compromise? If you can compromise, you can have one platform which works across the whole of the company, and it will make things a lot easier, and you'll be able to work out what the roadmap is. But if you have departments that work in silos, they'll go off down one tangent, and then they'll go off, and somebody will go off down another tangent, and then in a year's time or 2 years' time, it becomes very, very difficult to bring that back to a single path, and that's where you have that complication. But as you said, it's about the human mind. It's about trying to convince people about what's right for the company as opposed to necessarily just what's right for one department.
Totally agree.
I think that's interesting, because I think one of the issues is that if trying to convince people to use a tool versus creating something that they want. And I think this is the huge opportunities, giving employees the tools that they want, that are aligned with what they need, that really think through the problem. And I think TikTok is a great example, because it is a tool that works. So it's easy to pick up. You can intuitively use it. And if everybody becomes a broadcaster because of that, yeah. A lot of people became broadcasters. So it changed the entire field of media. And I think in the same way, a lot of business models, a lot of processes could be rethought when you look at them from the customer perspective first and from the employee perspective first. So it's really about that. And I think one of the biggest challenges really is the commitment that organizations need to have sometimes to be able to do that and really say, okay, it's not about the tech that we choose 100%. It's not about the process. It's about what do our customers need and what do our users, our employees need, and really going full on into solving that, and not compromising. And I think this is a huge difference.
And you're so right, because traditionally when we think about technology, we would start looking internally as to what is it that we want to do, and you start, how do you do things, and you start to map out processes and things. And so you're going to then choose some new technology, but try and do the old in that brand new technology. And I think your mindset has also to shift, because now you want to understand, what does my customer base, the community I'm trying to reach, what is it that they want? So taking that user-centric approach, what you were describing, is absolutely the right way. And then ensuring that when you're delivering your technology, you're actually creating the future. And then what you've got to do is figure out how you go from where you're at today to that future. And that's what's going to really make you successful through that transformation.
And some of the things that happen there are quite staggeringly simple, aren't they? So this was an example of many. I was trying to understand, we have legacy debt, so I have a mainframe, but I was trying to understand, why we have some things today and why they look that way. And I found the original kind of programmer and the business analyst that worked on it. Because the technology for steel processing had changed, it took an opportunity to change the technology and introduce some technology for the very first time. They really struggled to get the change through. They struggled with the guys to do the testing of the screens and everything else. They went out and they looked at what was actually happening. And in the corner was something that looked like a cricket scoreboard, with literally all of the kind of the numbers, etc., to turn in certain boxes. That's how the control was operated on the ground. Once they realized that, and they then went back to kind of what's the visualization, and this is back in the 90s on a mainframe, so it's going to be pretty limited anyway, but nonetheless, once they'd cracked that and seen that, the thing worked. But it was just that simple.
So visualization of the process.
Right.
Well,
Amazing.
and getting technologists to get out into the business, go and walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, I think, to Juan's point. To go in to ask the so what question. What is my technology? What value is it going to bring to the end consumer or the internal stakeholder? That's on us to encourage all of our teams to do that.
Yes, as Juan said, it's not asking the basic questions, what you can do, but then the why if you're doing it. And it seems to be what you're all saying is a lot of it is the take-up and the people that can be the biggest challenge. And sustainability, somebody said as well. Are there any tools or processes that you'd like to see invented or redesigned that could help you? You're all in very different industries, so it's really interesting to hear the examples. The specific examples are really, really good because it helps us all understand how it works in your industry.
I think sometimes I see tools that come out that need to be simplified. So they'll try and make it this wonderful magic tool that will fix absolutely everything, and it doesn't. And so often happens within business that you end up purchasing a tool for one particular thing, and you never fully turn it on or activate all of the other functionality. And so I think you need to be aware of that. And sometimes these tools, as a result, can become very, very complicated, which means that you're prone to be making mistakes, or you have to be very, very careful about when you're making any changes with them. So simplification, I think, is good so that people can understand the tools better and what they do. Or maybe I'm just getting old.
No, but they're designed by techie people, and therefore all in the instructions are like that, to my mind, as a user. And sometimes you, just as you say, want it much simpler.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting because it's interesting to see this question in the context of having legacy, having off-the-shelf tools, having needing to do the day-to-day and still think about where the organization is going to go next. And especially, I think, in enterprise space and in B2B space, technology came in early. So there's, in banking, steel, gas and oil, where you could see first implementation of technology. There's things there already, and they're at a state of, having something is better than not having nothing. But some of these actually sometimes been, this geniusly done when you look at the solutions. But there's an opportunity to move forward, and there's opportunity also to look at what we're going to be doing next. And the type of workforce that comes into companies today. Kids that are playing on Minecraft are going to look at work in a different way. They're going to want different types of tools, and I think this is a huge opportunity for organizations to take that on. While there's still the challenges of maintaining the day-to-day, having the legacy things in. But back to your question, what I would love to see invented is organizations taking more advantage of the data that they have. So really kind of being creative with the data to be able to benefit the customer and to be able to increase productivity by providing people tools that are utilizing the organization's data in the context that they're in, that are connected to the way that they work. I think there's a huge opportunity in that. And within that, everything else has to fit, which is designing the right processes, not focusing on technology, focusing on the user. I think that's what excites me personally.
Anybody else got ideas? Thank you for that one. Leon, sorry. On the tools and processes that might help in the future.
I'm not sure. So if I think what is the one thing that if I could solve it would really help me massively, it's probably not a technology thing, although technology might potentially help. For me, it's about how do I develop talent and bring talent into the organization so that I can make what I'm doing from that technology perspective sustainable for the future, because that's the biggest challenge that we have right now. Attracting talent, bringing talent that's going to help us realize all of those opportunities. That is the biggest problem.
And you'd say there's a shortage of tech talent out there?
Yes, the technology is very interesting. I guess we're all in technology partly for some of those reasons, because it's constantly changing. People that come into technology need also to understand that you're coming into a job where you have to constantly learn and keep up and adapt to those changes yourself. And so if you can solve the bringing in talent and create a mindset through that talent pipeline, you'll go a long way to create a really productive and sustainable workforce, not only for your organization, but for the entire marketplace as well. I think that's where we probably all have the biggest gaps today.
Well, you're in education, so it starts there, really, doesn't it? Probably starts at school with TikTok and Minecraft and all these things, and then getting them moving from there. Anybody else got ideas for the future that might help?
Just to build, really, on the last comments, I don't think it's around the technology. I think there's a lot of technology out there today, some great technology. For me, it's talents, but it's broadening the talent pool, bringing more people into technology that can bring different skills. Storytelling. Yes. How do we tell the story around what technology can do to the organization, around the life cycle of technology? How do we ensure that people understand the ecosystem and the complexities? Technologists in the past have struggled on that topic. So I think actually bringing people in from, whether it's broadcasting or media, or from marketing, sales, to be able to really embrace the technology and think about the wider implications of across the organization. I think as technologists, we've got an awful lot to learn from different skills that organizations have. And at times, there's a bit of a sort of void as to people concerned about coming into technology because they don't understand the technology. So how do we bring the two together and make it simpler for people to understand?
I think that's really interesting, that technologists have the reputation of knowing lots about the tech, but not so much about the people. But you've already said, wasn't it you that said, walk through,
about somebody else's shoes,
on the factory floor, as it were, and just see what's happening. And it's telling the stories, relating to people, so that that using technology will be beneficial.
Correct.
And that's what sometimes it's very difficult to persuade the hearts and minds, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah, using technology without understanding necessarily how it works, but why it works. So we have been looking recently at our whole process safety angles again. So some of our locations, if we have an issue, then not only do we affect colleagues on the site, but equally neighbours that might be close to the operations as well as other companies, petrochemicals, etc. The same challenge. The volume of things you need to know to kind of run an effective process safety approach when you're running large-scale operations is large and getting larger and more complex to some extent, and there are more risks. So you see things like Alexa, kind of coming through and saying, Alexa, what was the score last night? Alexa, is my calendar full? That's fine, but actually, Alexa, how does the scaffolding go up here? Alexa, what was the last 3 accidents in this zone? Alexa, and having that instant ability to come back with advice, guidance, and instruction, if necessary, on how to approach certain jobs. Many people, will have a long time in the industry, for example. They'll know intuitively kind of what to go for, but equally they may overlook things. New starters don't kind of understand the environment, but are looking for more checklists. So you've got sort of different end use cases, but come into a same core capability. So, when I saw this question, it struck a chord because we've actually been talking with our process safety teams and saying, well, what would you do? How would you use these tools? Can we go with chatbots? Can you actually get that capability? It doesn't sound like I can, because when I asked the question of Gartner, they said, you're asking the wrong question. So, so it obviously is an area that people are interested in, but don't quite know how the technology.
Did you ask Alexa?
I did get a new calendar invite, unfortunately, but not advice on process safety. And for us, it's a serious issue. And, and that would make a big difference on the productivity side, because not only do we operate safely, but it's just the speed at which operators could then make assessments and judgments.
I really love this example because it really thinks about what are humans good at and what are less good at. Holding huge amount of information, it's actually not something we're really good at. And I think this is also a great example of how do you create a tool that is, your productivity and work tools should be delightful to use. There's absolutely a reason why not. They should be great to use. We have the ability to do that. We do that in consumer software. Why shouldn't we do that in enterprise software? So I think that's kind of the anxiety around, I have a tool, I have to learn, it's complex. This is it's a legacy issue. It can be solved. You can create tools that people love to use and that think about the problem in a very deep human way. And I think about also in terms of talent, creating tools that people want to use are going to help you recruit the right talent. I know you were specifically talking about your kind of potentially your department, but I think within that as well, if you create tools and use tools that are attracting the right talent, they will come. If you solve the right problems as well. If you can concentrate on interesting problems, and that's around, I think, human behavior and how can you improve people's life. That's a very big way of saying it, but
there is a fundamental shift, I think, with technology, where traditionally we've used technology to run our business, and we produce widgets, tools, services, products that we thought the marketplace wanted, and we competed and differentiated in that way. Today, if you're doing that, you're not going to be very successful. There's problems there today. Technology is enabling you to have a conversation directly to find out what your customer base really wants. What is it that they need, so that you can then adapt and change the things that you do to serve that marketplace and to take advantage of that marketplace. That's a fundamental shift in how you think about using technology and how you adopt and implement technology across your organization. And it's really important to understand.
And it's the why, not the what, isn't it? Why do people want it? And also, as a user of phones or in broadcasting, is telly, because you want something, you're going to make that technology work for you. Yes. But if it's all too complex, people are not going to use it.
But conversations today happen across all mediums, through media, Twitter, and if you're not utilizing technology to understand how the marketplace is responding to you, and you're adapting to those changes, then you're in for some challenges, I think.
An awful lot of what all of you have said is about communication, whether it's with the end user, with employees or clients. It's about communicating the benefits of the technology, I guess.
It is. And it was a really simple example we did recently with Office 365 Teams, where we connected two of our IT suppliers to the same Teams environment, so we can just chat, call, talk, share as and when we want to. You kind of don't think of it. You think, well, you had the phone before, you had the text before, but actually, because it's a common the platform approach, because it's common to both of us, it's brilliant because it just the speed at which you kind of get information, get stuff, and you can do ad hoc things, or you can do the kind of long run things as well. It was such a small thing, but it was huge, just for communication.
I think to build up on your point, though, it's not just about the benefits for me; it's about the constraints in the technology. I see too many teams bending technology, and that creates the next generation of legacy because it's not sustainable. So how do we better communicate the constraints as well that technology has to improve the technology, but just to make sure that we're not bending it for the sake of bending it?
And you talked about simplifying as well.
Yeah, and to pick up on your point, you talk about with that collaboration, the speed of which things can be done. That isn't always a good thing, because sometimes things can go too quickly, which means that it's very, very difficult to keep up with, and that's when mistakes can happen. So it's just trying to make sure that you keep that steady momentum, and as you said, not let people go off a tangent. Give them freedom, but not.
Needs to be guardrails. Yeah.
Spoken like a true IT man.
Yeah. I'll make you think you're in.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap this up. But it's been very interesting listening to you all. I think you've said that technology does help productivity. The challenges are often persuading people, being creative with data, focusing more on the user, and developing talent, broadening the talent pool. And I love what you said about storytelling and getting people to make the most of technology, to enjoy it, really, isn't it? To make it work for them, not understand necessarily how it works, but what it can do for them. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.